Hello there. This is General Welfare Presents with Paul Glumaz, 45-year veteran with Lyndon LaRouche and the political movement of Lyndon LaRouche. And today is the 16th of December. And boy, are things getting hot in Europe. There's a mass strike in Europe. We're very close to a mass strike in Great Britain. And we're very close to a mass strike in Germany. So this is very important that I need to discuss this with you because the whole understanding, the whole way you have to understand what's going on is that what's going on in the United States is not fundamentally different than what's going on in Europe and what's going on in other parts of the world, which have been part of the transatlantic financial empire. They're similar, but they're being the outrage of the population is being expressed in different ways because of different systems. In France, you have a police state and you have very deep anger in the population, and now it's exploding. And it's exploding not just because of the immigration issue, not just because of the austerity, not just because of the global warming or climate change dictatorship that's being imposed and the taxes. It's exploding because people's lives have gotten a lot crappier. And it's gotten crappier and crappier and crappier, and there's a large influx of people from the Middle East and North Africa, refugees from international terrorism, which is being financed by the same people that want to allow countries to be overrun by these people. And it's just creating a crisis in France. But you have to understand that similar situation is also going on in Germany. It's also going on in Great Britain around the Brexit. It's also going on in Canada. There is a new yellow vest movement emerging in Canada, along with a new political party called the People's Party of Canada, the PPC, and that's getting started. And this is the same working class getting screwed, middle class getting screwed, poor getting screwed, skilled engineers getting screwed, the people that actually have meaningful jobs, meaningful lives, that are not parasites on the nation, nor are they so poor that they're totally dependent on the state for their existence. These are the people that are revolting, and not just in Europe, but also starting in Canada. There was 600 convoy of trucks and vans and diesel going through Alberta. There's a revolt going on in Alberta right now. But in the United States, the revolt occurred, the beginning of the revolt occurred with the election of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a manifestation of the revolt, the same revolt that is going on in Europe, the same revolt that is going on in all these countries. Right? Now, one country where you don't see yellow vests or people demonstrating or burning down this and that is Italy. Because the electoral process in Italy brought to power a grouping, a formation which is breaking with the European Union and is going with China in the Belt and Road, which is going with LaRouche's economic policies, and many of the leaders of that new government are part of the networks that we've been talking to for many decades. And the finance minister Tria just spoke and said, we're going to expand the economic activity of our companies, of our medium-sized companies, of our skilled engineering companies, of our consulting firms, to participate and work with China in the Belt and Road, and that this will create an increase of jobs. It'll create a market. We will work to improve our ports so that Italy and its position in the Mediterranean can become a gateway to Africa economically, Asia, and Europe. This is Italy. Italy is not in a stage of crisis the way Germany, France, and United Kingdom is. Now, here in the United States, the revolt that you saw with Trump is not over. It hasn't succeeded and it hasn't been crushed. And we're going into the next phase of the revolt. Now, I'm going to tell you something. If this impeachment process or this coup continues, it's going to activate much more stronger response from the base of the population. Because it's now becoming clear that the whole climate change thing, the whole thing about global warming has nothing to do with reality. It's a psychological brainwashing operation to break the population, to break the working class, to break the mindset of the population, which has a sense of what human beings can do because they're working class. They do work. They do engineering. They understand things about the real economy. They understand things about how to fix things. These people are being told that they should feel guilty for their very existence. That's the message that is being done to our children. That's the message that the global warming crowd is saying. We can't do anything about it except die. The more we die, the better it is for the planet. That's the green movement. It's a self-flagellating, self-destructive. You might as well be the flagellants in the Middle Ages, as far as I'm concerned, in this situation. I feel guilty for breathing. I feel guilty for existing because I'm hurting the planet. This is what you're being told. This is what your children are being told. So you better believe you're going to get all screwed up. Everybody's going to have a screwed up. This is to break the population so that they will accept the austerity. They will accept the brutal conditions that are being imposed by the international financial system, which is collapsing. And it is. Janet Yellen of the Federal Reserve, former Federal Reserve Chairman, has twice now warned about the situation with the corporate debt bubble. These corporations have been borrowing incredibly. They've been getting loans on a mass scale. They've been selling their bonds on a mass scale, and none of this is really going into the real economy. It's a large portion of it is to buy back stock. General Motors and General Electric are both in the tank. They are finished. They are technically bankrupt right now. They're laying people off on a mass scale. These are huge operations. 15,000 layoffs here from General Motors. That's huge. And Deutsche Bank is already bankrupt, and it's going to have to be bailed out. It's going to have to be undertaken. Countries are going to have to bail out Deutsche Bank, which is huge. And that's just the beginning. And then in Great Britain, you have the Brexit, where if you have a hard Brexit, if Great Britain actually separates from the European Union, that will cause a global financial collapse because the derivatives of the connected in with the City of London and Europe would have to be unwound, and it would probably trigger a global financial collapse. So we're looking at the collapse. We're looking at now, and then what happens? Trump is trying to work a summit in Argentina with Putin, and it gets totally blown away by events. He can't have a summit with Putin. Why would you want to have a summit with Putin? Because the whole global financial system is going to collapse, and you got all these problems, and you got the drive for war still going on. The United States is still at war with Russia. The United States is still financing terrorism and training terrorist operations in Syria. And then there's China. So China had a summit. Xi Jinping had a summit with Trump in Buenos Aires. On the day of that summit, the leading person of Huawei was arrested in Vancouver on extradition charges that were so crazy, and none of the laws that she's being extradited on apply to Canada, and it has nothing to do with the extradition treaty. It's not even legal by the extradition treaty. And this has completely blown everything up. But what Trump and Xi agreed, what the China and the U.S. agreed, is that they're going to work on studying and working out a resolution over a 90-day period. Well, the 90-day period started December 1st. And that should take us all the way into February 1st. No, March 1st. It should take us all the way into March 1st. That is valuable time for a dialogue over what to do about the global financial system, which is coming to... Now, nothing will be work unless you get these four major nations together. Already you have three of them together. They started to start the dialogue. Russia, China, and India at Buenos Aires began the dialogue, the collaboration that is required. They have to bring the U.S. in. Once that happens, then you can get a new financial system. You can get a new architecture. Otherwise, you have no way of dealing with the systemic breakdown of the financial system other than squeeze, 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 bail out, bail out, bail out, bail out, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And the population has reached a point in many parts of Europe and the United States where they've had it. And if they go after Trump and they try to pull a fast one, and there's a huge fight in the Congress around impeachment, it's going to activate people. People are not going to stand by who recognize that Trump is a reflection of their anger, of the abuse that they have been put in, whether it's their kids in school being taught crap, or the job situation, or their income, or the healthcare thing, or the global warming thing, or the carbon tax, or whatever. The people are at the edge of blowing out, and they brought. That's how Trump won the election. Now you got a governor in Washington State who's. I'm going to show you how disconnected this governor is. Okay, he's very concerned about the orca whales. Well, first of all, the orcas are not whales. They're supersized dolphin relatives. And they go around killing whales, okay? But these orcas have become an emotional experience for these people. They will spend thousands of dollars to get a glimpse of an orca. But they better not get too close, because they may turn into more than a glimpse. It may turn into chow time. Okay? That's how out of touch with reality. Now, these orcas need salmon to live on. And they like, one salmon in particular is called the Chinook salmon. And what's the river?
Snake.
Huh?
The Snake River.
The Snake River, which feeds into what?
Into Columbia.
In the Columbia, is one of the rivers with all of the Chinook. So, because of the dams, allegedly, there's not enough Chinook being created to keep the orcas happy. So Governor Inslee, on this basis, wants to take down the dams. That is the governor of Washington State. Where is this governor at? He is totally insane. He has totally lost it psychologically. You know, so this is what we're dealing with. And he doesn't want any carbon, any coal to be coming through Washington State. You know, we need to all go to windmills and solar power. This is insane. And then this woman, OcasioCortez, the new Pied Piper of the millennial generation, who won her seat in Congress, had 1,000 people demonstrating about how to get rid of all carbon by 2030. That's 10 years. That's 11 years from now. 12 years from now, we got to have no carbon, all renewable energy, and that's what has to be done. And that's we need a war to do that. Now, how many people will that support? I doubt it will support 10% of the U.S. population, and certainly not the economy. But these people are nuts. They might as well be the flagellants of the Middle Ages, as far as I'm concerned. As I said earlier. So this is what's happening. The revolt is on, and this situation is, you just saw Pelosi and Schumer in that dialogue with Trump. And they said, no infrastructure unless it's green. Well, it ain't gonna, there is no infrastructure that's green. What's green infrastructure? Solar panels, windmills. What infrastructure is there that is green? Infrastructure is roads, bridges, dams, rail, high-speed rail. That's infrastructure. Is that green or not? Well, what is a green high-speed rail? Well, is that your trains running on manure? What are these people? I mean, where are these people coming from? They are not in the real world. But the working class, for the most part, is in the real world. And they have been abused, massively abused, by all of this. And this is a revolt. But this revolt cannot just lead to an enraged response. It has to lead to an actual solution. It has to lead to an economic policy solution. That's where LaRouche's economics comes in. That's where bank separation or Glass-Steagall has to occur so that our commercial part of our economy, the part of the economy where business is done, where day-to-day business is done, you do not use your deposit base in your banking system for speculation, for the gambling casino. These companies, like General Motors, General Electric, and many other companies, they stopped being manufacturing companies. You know what they started doing? They said, wow, we got a cash flow here. The cash flow comes through the company. What's the cash flow? They sell the cars, money comes in, right? And that cash flow is like a float. Well, you know, we could be earning a little bit of extra off the float. Why don't we invest the float in day-to-day derivatives and all this other crap? So guess what, folks? We're no longer a manufacturing firm. We're a financial floating company. We are now in the financial business. Okay, and now we have all of the pension plans, right? Of all the non-union people. Well, let's put that in the float. Let's float that one too. Okay, let's put that in the gambling casino. You know? And on and on and on it goes. Oh, the stock. We need to get our stock back up. Let's put that in the stock. Let's borrow money. Let's put the borrowed money in the float. And on we go. So what are we? Are we a manufacturing firm? Yes, but we don't manufacture to manufacture. We manufacture to get an income stream so we can sustain our gambling activities. Does that make any sense? It's like Jeff Bezos, right? Right? Where is Jeff Bezos making the money? Well, in order to do all these things that he's doing, with Amazon replacing the retail system, you have to have incredible computer capabilities, right? And now he's a contractor to the CIA and the government to use the same computer capabilities. They call it the cloud, right? Well, so now that's where he's making his money, from the government. And from probably something else, floating into the float, into the financial bubble. So this is what's going on. And these people aren't going to go down lightly. But they are going to go down because there is this thing called reality. And reality ultimately shows up. It may take a while, but reality also does show up. And it is starting to show up in the financial system, and it's also starting to show up mostly in the popular anger and rage. And that's only the beginning. We're only beginning to see the beginning of it. So we are definitely in a revolutionary period. We're going into a revolution. It's a revolution that ends the power of this financial crowd. It's a revolution that ends the power of these globalists. It's a revolution that will restore power to the nations and to the people of those nations. And it's a revolution in the way we do economic activity and the way we do financial activity. That is the revolution that we're starting to go into. Now, the Chinese do not have a lot of debt. The Chinese debt, however, is not tied up in the gambling casino. It's tied up in actually building things. Now, the Belt and Road is the engine, is the physical economic engine for this development on a global scale. But you don't hear much of it in the U.S. media about the Belt and Road because they don't want people to know that there's a new system coming in. They don't want people to know there's some hope that you can develop your country if you connect to the Belt and Road like Italy's doing. The United States could massively increase its manufacturing activity and exports, participating with China in the development of the entire world. India is moving in that direction. Japan is moving in that direction. The Philippines are moving in that direction. All Africa is going to have, by 2050, 2.5 billion people. Those are people could be productive if you build the infrastructure and you develop the place. That was the problem with the old Breton Woods system, is it didn't focus on doing that. This new system that's coming in is focused on doing that. So what's the response from the Trump administration? Not necessarily from Trump himself. Because the Trump administration and Donald Trump are not the same things. Donald Trump is the revolt, and the Trump administration is not the revolt. Unfortunately. Yet. So, National Security Advisor John Bolton at the Heritage Foundation, December 13th of this year, goes on an all-out tirade against China's activities in Africa, saying that China is threatening U.S. military operations in Africa. I didn't know we had military operations in China, in Africa. And he said the Belt and Road is all about China building an empire in which they're the center of it. You know, I mean, and this, you know, it was a total attack on China, Russia, the Belt and Road, the economic system, because he still thinks in the old way, which is it's us versus them. He still thinks in the old way, it's geopolitics. My friend, it's not geopolitics anymore. We either all make it or we don't make it. We're entering a planetary situation in which either we as a human race, through the instrument of nations, we create an economic system where all nations can grow and develop, where all people have a future. And that's where we're going to be very soon, or we're not going to be. And you're all privileged to be living through this revolution, and you'll be able to discuss what this revolution was about, or you're going to die in this revolution. Or there ain't going to be a revolution. We're all going to be dead. So it's time to get active. It's time to get involved. It's time to get involved in this revolution. And I encourage you, most of all, to contact us. Contact me. You have my information on the video, and get a hold of me. It's important. And I can get you involved. I can get you connected to how to get involved. So this is where we are. We're entering the revolution. You haven't seen anything yet. There is an all-out assault on Trump. Trump, look, let me tell you how bad it is. 46 Democrats said we don't want to impeach Donald Trump because we didn't win our elections on the basis of impeachment. Well, let me tell you something. You 46 Democrats who did not campaign on impeachment because you knew you would lose the elections and don't want the Democratic Party to make impeachment the number one issue. Well, I'm going to tell you, it's too bad. That is going to be the issue. Because the powers that be to run the Democratic Party are not going to don't give a hoot about how you won your election. Right? That's the way it is. That's what they're going to do. It's going to be an all-out war, and And this is going to activate a lot of people, and everyone that's listening to this needs to be activated. So we are gathered here in front of the FBI headquarters. The FBI, according to former Senator Bob Graham, who was the chair of the 9/11 Commission report, the FBI actively suppressed the evidence of Saudi involvement in 9/11, actively lied, not just covered up, but actively lied. And we are at a turning point in our nation because we have to change our nation. We have to change our society if we're going to survive. And part of doing that is to see to it that the 9/11, the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission report reach the public, which is currently being classified. And if you do that, you will begin to unravel the criminal element that has been at the core of our destruction as a nation, which is the Federal Bureau of Investigation.